नमस्कार दोस्तों, आज के इस YouTube लाइव में आपका फिर से स्वागत है। So this YouTube live is very unique because this is the first time we have a guest, or we can say a student, who will be sharing you the experience of two different continents of the world. And I will not take this introduction very deep. I will directly call him. His name is Mr. Emiliano. He will be the future doctor to serve the world. And as you know, global doctor is a global citizen. So I will like to get some details about Emiliano. So I will add him in the screen. So good afternoon, Emiliano. I think it's
Hello.
morning out there. Hello.
Yep. Good morning from my side.
So,
I'm in Mexico right now.
yeah, so Emiliano, I will not take a lot of time because our viewers are bored with watching me a lot of time. They want to listen more from you. So first, can you introduce yourself from where you are and why you plan to be a doctor?
Yeah. So my name is Emiliano Ruiz. I am from Oaxaca, Mexico, which is a state in Mexico in the south. But I study medicine in Milan, Italy, and I'm gonna turn. I'm gonna go into my second year of medicine. So I've already done a year in Italy. Um, And the reason I chose to do medicine, well, first of all, I didn't know I wanted to do medicine once I finished high school and I took a gap year, um, which I chose to do also during the year of the COVID-19 pandemic, which was very fortunate that I made that choice. And I chose to do medicine because I thought it was a meaningful job that also provides value to me in what I do, but also to others. And I think it's an objectively valuable and meaningful job, meaning that I can provide real meaningful value, and everybody needs to be healthy and everybody needs healthcare. And I thought it's not going away anytime soon. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to fill a spot as a doctor. And I have some experience watching doctors. I mean, my mother is a doctor, my grandmother's a doctor, my great grandfather was a doctor. So there's a few doctors in the family. And although I didn't choose to be a doctor because of them, it certainly served to show me what it can be like. And that definitely helped.
That's great to know, Emiliano, that though from family you could have got a lot of support, but being a doctor is something which triggered inside you automatically, not because of their pressure. As in India, you know, like if your father or mother, anybody is doctor, you have to be a doctor. Like they will force you to be a doctor. So I'm happy that didn't get that pressure, but yeah, they will be happy that you chose that's a career.
Yeah.
So, Emiliano, can you tell me like what is the situation in Mexico as such in terms of education? What is the education pattern? Like, if a student who studies is 10-year old, when is the right time to think about he should be a doctor or not? And what is the course? Like, they have to study the schools after that. How the education brings them to be a doctor? Is there any entrance exam to study in Mexico? And is the education is in English, or can foreigners can study in Mexico? I have asked a lot of questions, but it is all related to how the education system in Mexico works for local and international students who want to be a doctor.
So starting from local students, it's a 6 year medicine is a 6 year course for everybody, and there is entrance exams for both private and public universities. As far as I know, most universities are in Spanish, so you do have to know Spanish um, to study in these universities, and you graduate from high school with a GPA, and if it's good, you do the entrance exam, and then you have 6 years of medical school, and you do rotations through hospitals. You do like something called social service, where you like are sent to a clinic, maybe in a rural area, to help for like a year to gain experience, and then you can also choose your specialty afterwards. And it's very easy to do if you graduate from a Mexican high school. I did the IB, the International Baccalaureate, and I did it outside of Mexico. So when I came back home during my gap year, I actually tried to apply to Mexican universities, um, as well as the Humanitas University in Italy. And it was very hard for me, not because I didn't have the grades or anything, but because I couldn't convert my international baccalaureate diploma into a Mexican standard high school diploma. So in the end, I couldn't really apply to universities here just because I didn't study in Mexico. So it's definitely possible. It was just much more difficult for me as an ex-IB student or an IB graduate to do that. Um, but I think a lot of universities in Mexico are really good and they're getting better, and they have some uh, things that are better in Mexico than in Italy, and obviously some that in Italy that are better than in Mexico. An example could be, for example, dissections, which is when you work with corpses or even animals. I know a few schools in Mexico where you to learn anatomy and to learn organs and to learn like surgical practices, you work on. I've heard of dogs or pigs, and I'm pretty sure that in Italy, anything relating to dissections is forbidden and not done. But obviously, I think dissections are a very important part of learning medicine and seeing how the human body is different from a textbook, really. Um, so yeah, I think medicine in Mexico is quite good. I think it's advancing. I think it's progressing. But I found it quite difficult as an IB/slash international student to stay here.
So yeah, this is a very different story because you studied some IB. It is sometimes difficult for credit and all this. There are such difficulty Indian students have also faced in India and other country. Especially a lot of students go to study in Philippines and they face this problem because their education pattern, the durations is different than that of India. So this happens when you are an international student and not focused on one country. So there are positives and there are negatives. Yeah, you said it very rightly that in Mexico the practical exposure with the corpses and the body will be better because I believe that is it because of the population of Mexico is a bit higher than that of Italy? Is it that the reason that
I
it is
think
dead body,
I
right?
think the reason you can't work on corpses in Italy is a cultural reason, and I think it's a religious reason too, mainly that you can't work on corpses.
Okay. Okay, that is something new to me, and thank you for information. And I want to know about some more information about Mexico. Like your mother also passed her medical exams and medical education from Mexico. So how her what is the system? Is there any entrance examination to study medicine, or they based on the credits and based on the subjects you have studied, you can study medicine? And what is the cost of studying medicine in Mexico, in both government or public or private university? If you can share some details.
Okay. Honestly, I don't know what the cost is. It's it's quite cheap in public universities, and it can be quite expensive in private ones, but I don't know specific numbers. But yeah, my mom studied here in Mexico, and then she did a bit. She did the whole entire 6 years here in Mexico, and then I think she did her specialty or subspecialty in the United States, and then came back um, to practice medicine here, which is always an option. I think a lot of people that study medicine here aim to do the 6 years here, then maybe get a specialty or subspecialty in the United States, and then come back and practice here. There is university specific entrance exams. So each private university will have their own entrance exam, which you will go write and do. And depending on your performance, then you will get in or not get in. And of course, there's a certain number of spaces, so you'll be ranked. And then, well, yeah, depending on how you perform, you'll either get in or don't. And same for the public ones. There's an entrance exam. There's more spaces, I think, in public universities, but there's also way more applicants, so it can be much more competitive. And some of them are ranked higher than private ones. So just because one is public and maybe less expensive, and maybe there's more students, doesn't necessarily mean that it's worse quality or worse education that you're receiving. Quite the opposite sometimes. Um, But yeah, I didn't get to the stage of writing any exams. And actually, I think for some private ones, you can apply using only your grades if you have in Mexico grades work out of 10. If you have like a above 9 or 9.5 average at the end of high school, which is quite hard. It's a challenging thing to have. But I believe that if you have that, you can apply directly to medicine without without taking the exam. But most people have to take the exam. Yeah.
So I think it is quite similar to that of Indian curriculum and Indian system, because here also the universities, rather the government universities, which are quite cheaper, rather it's just cheap. Like they don't even, it's a student can complete their education in pocket money, rather you can say with the pocket money. Those universities are the top universities, and
Mhm.
where you are spending maybe like $1 million with up to $1 million. There are colleges where $500,000 is the total fees. You can imagine like how much it's expensive to study medicine in India sometimes. So those are not the top colleges, but as they are private colleges, sometimes they get an advantage. So they get an advantage that any student can take admission out there. So Emiliano, I think you are not. You have to reconnect. So in the meantime, I will tell my viewers while I'm getting reconnected to Emiliano because I think there are some internet issues. So he's not able to connect right now. So what we are discussing here for all the students to know that studying medicine is a thing where a lot of students have this dream, but the process to study medicine varies from country to country. So being a doctor in one country is a big thing. Every country needs doctor, especially after pandemic. We can say that every country needs doctor. But when you are planning to study medicine, there are a lot of efforts along with education. There are a lot of technical aspect you need to understand to study medicine at your own capacity, be it in terms of education capacity, be it in terms of financial capacity. So it's not easy to study medicine in any country and anywhere in the world if you want to study in the best colleges. Especially, you will see the students who study in a particular country, it is much easier for them to go to other country and study medicine sometimes, but it is difficult to get study in their own country because of the tough entrance exams and everything. So Emiliano is back, I guess. Emiliano, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
No issue, I
I'm
understand.
back.
We are in two different continent, two ends of the world, you can say, and
Yes, I can
so
hear you. Yeah.
sometimes internet cannot be so smooth. Anyways, so coming to the question which we asked, uh, so you chose to study in Italy, and how long you have completed? Like you chose to study in Italy. So how was your experience of getting admission in a particular college or university in Italy? Like what was the process and which college or university you are actually studying in, and how is your experience till now?
Well, let me tell this story of me getting into Italy because like I did the IB, I realized that I didn't know what I wanted to study. I had no idea. And so I decided to take a sabbatical, take a gap year, and I came back to Mexico during the height of the COVID pandemic. Um, so I had a lot of plans to figure out what I wanted to do, but in reality, I couldn't do any of them because of the pandemic. So I just came back. I was with my parents, with my brother. I was at home, and through doing like free open online courses about different subjects like law, nursing, medicine, um, politics, law, I realized, oh, I like this medicine thing. I like biology, and so I started to look at universities in the United Kingdom, which I think a lot of people tended to do, but they're very, very expensive now. I think with Brexit for international students, they're comparable to the United States, which is also very, very expensive. So I also didn't take chemistry as an IB subject. So for those two reasons, me not having the correct subjects and the just insane cost of studying in the United Kingdom, I couldn't or I didn't apply or couldn't apply to the United Kingdom. And I was looking into which other countries in uh, can I study in English medicine, right? And as a backup, I did look into some universities here in Mexico, just as a failsafe in case I didn't get into any. But I saw that the best medical schools in English in Europe were Italy, because there's a lot. There's some in Czech Republic. There's some, I think, in Bulgaria, but I think, and from what I heard, the best ones are in Italy. And so I looked at the few private ones there are, simply because the public ones, you have to do an exam in September, and then you have 2 weeks or so to get a visa, get student accommodation, etc., and move there eventually, as well as the fact that you don't choose where you live. It's kind of assigned to you based on your points, and if you don't get in, then you're kind of screwed. So I kept that in the back, but they're also way cheaper. They're like 4,000 euros a year, and then depending on your income, I think that's adjustable. So they're very cheap, while still being very very good. But I kept that in the back of my head because I didn't want to have the whole rush and the whole miss the first few months getting a visa and moving and not knowing where I was gonna live, etc. So that was like a plan B, and Mexico was a plan C. And plan A was the private universities in Italy, and Humanitas University had the admission test first. It was in February, which is quite early in terms of other admission tests. I think the other two private universities are San Raffaele and Università Cattolica. One of Università Cattolica is in Rome, and I'm also not religious, and that school is, as the name says, quite Catholic. So that was the least of my options, and then I was also going to try San Raffaele, but the exam is later in the year. So I did the Humat, which is what they call the Humanitas entrance exam, and I got fourth. And that made me eligible for a scholarship. All I had to do was present an essay, a motivational essay, my CV, and then sit down for like an interview, which was like a mini multi-interview of the style of I think of the OSCEs, or no, of the style of what they do in the UK. So I did that, and I ended up moving from the fourth position to the third position, and I think they offer 3 or 4 scholarships for international students. And so I ended up getting a scholarship, which meant I was going to pay 4,156 euros a year. I mean, for that year, which was the same as a public university for a private education, with private facilities and everything. And so I immediately accepted, and we paid, and we reserved my seat, and I didn't even do any other exams, because I thought, well, why would I when I don't have a scholarship assured, at least for the first year, and this seems to be good, and it's a new school. I think it's 7 or 8 years old now, which is quite new, which has its pros and cons, which we can get into later if you want. But yeah, that's basically it.
There's a very interesting thing which you discussed. Like I was not expecting when we started discussing that this scholarship thing, because a lot of people advertise in India, just because in education, like it has become business for a lot of education consultants, which I am also a part of. I will not deny that fact. But a lot of education consultants manipulate this scholarship, and they give information, and they take money and try to say that I will get you a scholarship and all this. Can you tell me in details about what this entrance exam which you appeared is all about, and what are the subjects you actually cover? And can any student from any part of the world, like can Indian student, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, or any Asian student can appear in this examination? And what is the medium of instruction or medium of language of this examination, and is there any prerequisite to appear in this examination? Can you give basic more details, because a lot of students are looking for scholarship opportunities and very less information is available from the scholars like you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I was actually quite excited to do the Humat because of the subjects. It's it's all in English, first of all, and there's no knowledge subject, so to speak. So there's no biology, there's no physics, there's no chemistry. There's mathematical thinking, scientific thinking. I think there's logical and problem solving, logic and problem solving, and then and that's the first part, which is 50% of the exam. And there's another part, which is another 50% of the exam, which is academic literacy. And basically, the first part, you are presented with sort of logic problems to solve. Oh, and there's also visual thinking. So for example, you might be presented a pattern and be told, okay, but if you were to have this mirrored, which pattern would you have? And then you have a list of 4 or 5 options and you have to choose the correct one. Or you might be presented with a formula and the question might be something like, if you multiply this to the power of 3, what would happen to this other part of the formula which is attached to it or is related to it, and then you have to choose what would happen. And that's basically the first part of the test. And the second part of the test is you read a text of like, I think 5 paragraphs, an academic test, so a bit high register language and stuff like that, in English. And then there's 5 questions that you answer about the text, and you have to do that I think 4 or 5 times. And this, yeah, at least when I did it and this upcoming class, they did it online. So I think you just need 2 devices, your laptop to do it on, which will be monitored by a proctor, so you don't cheat, and you need another device filming you from far away so they can see that you don't have like anybody behind you saying the answers or anything like that. But yeah, I did it online. They have 2 time slots. Because of time zones, I was in Mexico when I did it. I did it at 4 a.m., but anybody in the world can do it. In fact, there is I have a lot of Indian, and I think I know of a couple of Pakistani and a couple of Bangladeshi students in my school. There's actually a Humanitas Indian Society that started this year that is full of Indian people who they get together. I think they watch movies. There was like Holi, I think, which they went to or they organized. So there's a bunch of different activities that they do at school. But yeah, I think the test I was actually looking forward to because I didn't do chemistry. So any chemistry section in a test, which I think Universitas San Rafael does have, would have been quite bad for me because I'm not very good at chemistry. But because of this like new test, which is not like any other school really, it was quite nice. However, the Humanitas, once you pass this Humat, and you're one of the people that got accepted, which is there's 50 places for international students, and which are non-EU, and there's 130 places for EU students. So if you have a double nationality or something, they force you to go with the EU. So there's so that's the spaces per year. Once you're in one of those 180 slots in total, there is another test called the OFA that Humanitas does, and that one is a maths, physics, chemistry, biology test, and you can do it. Okay, and basically that one shouldn't worry you really because you're already in, and it's just to see where you are and how much knowledge on those subjects you have, and then they'll offer you courses and they'll offer you classes so you can get up to the same level as your classmates before the year starts, and then you do the exam again, and depending on whether you pass it or you fail it, you get more tries and more tries for the specific sections you failed. and it usually takes a couple of tries to pass. I failed all of them the first time, and then the second time I passed, I think two or three of them, and then the third time I got rid of it. But coming back to the scholarship, I think there's four scholarships for international students, and you have to do everything I said, which is we'll score high in the Humat first of all, and then I think the second most important thing is the interview, which I talked to three different doctors, and they asked me three different questions. I have a video of that on my channel, but and then you also have to submit a CV and a motivational essay, and to keep the the scholarship, which I haven't talked about on my channel yet, it's quite hard because you need a 27 out of 30. Grades in Italy are out of 30. So an exam will give you from 0 to 30 points, depending on how well you score. And to keep the scholarship, you need 27 out of 30, which as an international student, I found to be quite difficult, personally, because the Italian system of taking exams and of teaching is very different from what I'm used to. And you also need to have all the credits, which means that you can't have failed an exam and then redo it next year. You have to finish all your exams within the year. So it is quite hard. I didn't manage to keep the scholarship because I'm missing one exam. I still have to do one exam from first year in second year, and my average is quite far from 27 because I struggled with the first few subjects, which were for me quite tough. But I know of a lot of people that kept it, so it's definitely not impossible. It was just hard for me personally.
Very, very, very detailed information. And I will tell my viewers, these kind of details you don't get anywhere, because these are being told not to impress you, to share your number so that we can take your admission. This information is given by the person who has gone through those experiences, and these are the questions which normally people don't ask. What I am asking you, they want to make the video very, very very small and crispy so that they get more viewership. But this video, I'm telling all my viewers, is dedicated to the students who want to know the nitty gritties of how the scholarship should be approached, and after scholarship, what are the experiences a student can have. Like right now, Emiliano told me that there's a different type of education pattern followed in Italy. So I would like to know more about it, Emiliano. That why you find it different, and is it difficult or it is better? What you believe, like how different it is?
It's okay. So I know of how the system in Mexico works, how it works in the UK, and how it works in Italy. And I think well, here in Mexico, and I think in the UK, you have final exams after the semester, but you also have some projects or like homework and stuff to do that count for your grade. But in Italy, you work you go to class for an entire semester with no homework, no projects, nothing. But then the entirety of your grade is in one exam, which can be quite, it can be a lot of pressure to do well in that exam because it's the entirety of one semester worth of knowledge going into maybe 30 to 60 questions usually to get that 30 grade mark. And it's also different because, and this was something that's still quite weird to me, but you can choose whether to do exams, and it's okay to fail them and do them at a later date. So there's in one academic year, there's 5 different sessions for exams, which means that you can do one exam 5 times, and that's absolutely fine. And so, for example, first semester we had embryology and histology as one exam, and I managed to pass it the first session, and I got a 25 out of 30. But for example, if I had been focused on keeping the scholarship, I could have denied that grade and said, no, I don't want it. And then redo the exam, a different exam, obviously, but same subject, redo that exam a month after in, no, not even a month after, redo that exam in February, I think, uh, just to, yeah, it was a month after, I'm sorry. But yeah, just redo that exam a month after to get a higher grade, hopefully. And then if I got, say, a 28, then I could have accepted that mark and kept it. Or if I got, maybe I did worse and I got a 24, I could have denied that grade again and done it one more time. And that doesn't only happen if you pass an exam but don't like the grade. You can, if I, for example, the exam I still need to do is anatomy, and it's a combination of neuroanatomy, anatomy, and radiology. And so I did it twice. I did it in June and I failed it by basically nothing. And then I did it in July and they make them slightly harder. So I also failed it by barely nothing. And now there's a session in September, which I am not going to because I want to be at home and Mexico's far away and I'm here for 2 months. But and then the next chance I get to do that exam is in January or February. And then there's two chances, I think, in one in January, one in February. And then I think and that's it. And then until I pass that exam, I can't do my second year exams. So there is a bit of pressure to pass that exam, but knowing that I still have two more chances to pass is comforting. But since I also make them slightly harder and stuff, it's a bit nerve-wracking. But yeah, I have a lot of friends that are going back after a month of summer, which is actually like 3 weeks because you take a week to study. But exams for September, I have friends that failed the June session, failed the July session, are gonna take like 1 week or 2 weeks of break, take 2 weeks to study over summer, and then go back on the 1st of September to do either exams from the first semester, like embryology, or exams from the second semester, like biochemistry or anatomy. So that's one of the reasons why it was a bit weird for me because I wasn't used to failing exams. So med school is quite hard, but I also wasn't used to having so many tries to do the same exam or an exam for the same subject so many times.
Yeah, this is something which even I will like to tell my viewers that medical school is not at all easy, because this is the school where all toppers of all over the world, you can say, if it even in your own country, they sit together. And even if you're a top student of your school, of your province, it doesn't guarantee you that you will not fail exam. And this happens same in India. Like, let me give you one of my experience. Like, one of my student who was the state topper, like she topped the exam among 1 million student, and she chose medicine, and in the first 3 months she failed in one subject, and she lost her mind. Like, of course, like she was like, how could I even fail? And I literally had to take her for medical counseling, like that this is medical examination, and where teachers sometimes say that we fail you intentionally because you need to know that in medicine you cannot save all the patients. Sometimes after your all treatment, a patient might die. And these type of challenges, if you're not prepared with failing right now, how could you take it in your future? So these kind of
Yeah.
experiences are really something great to know. So one more question I will ask you about Italy. In Italy, how come all these students are being taught medicine in English language? Like, do you they need to learn Italian as well, or English is
Yeah.
sufficient to complete their education?
So what I've heard from the students is that you can get by knowing only English. Um, but personally, um, and what the school has said is that you need to know Italian starting from the first 2 years are purely clinical. So we don't have any contact with patients. We don't have we have a few labs, for example, where we learned where to listen to like heart and breath sounds on ourselves, but not on patients, on each other. I mean, but and it's in English because it's like an international private school and they're catering to like an international market. All the public schools are, there's some in English, but most all the public schools are, there's some in English, but some of them are in Italian. But they do offer for the first 2 years English classes to get us up to a sufficient level, because from the third year to the sixth year, we start going around the hospital. And of course, you're in a hospital in Italy with people that are sick or may have an ailment or something, and you can't expect somebody to speak English to you when you are taking care of them. So obviously, patients will be speaking English, Italian. Obviously, patients will be speaking Italian, and and a lot of doctors will be speaking Italian too. So if you're going to go around the hospital and follow around a physician and talk to patients and see how they are and talk to the nurses, then of course you need to know Italian. Even if you're not going to be conversing directly, which I think is what happens for the first year or for the first clinical year, so third year, or maybe even half of fourth year, where you're really just following around doctors, listening to what they're saying and learning from the interactions and what and recognizing maybe some disease you covered in clinic in theoretical years, just by listening. It's very important, I think, to learn Italian. And the school obviously offers Italian classes, and they also offer other language classes, because once you graduate, and this was one of the big positives of Italy for me, once you graduate from a EU school, any university within the EU, you can practice in any other country within the European Union. So if theoretically, if I knew, well, since I know Spanish, I can graduate from med school in Italy, knowing Italian, hopefully, so I could study. I could choose to stay in Italy, or I could perhaps go to Spain to practice in Spanish there, or maybe go to the Italian speaking side of Switzerland and work there, for example. And that's another great attractive. But we are expected to know Italian by the third year to be able to go into the hospital and make the most out of the experience, I think, and truly interact with patients and learn the most, I think. But the school does provide classes, which is I don't know. It's interesting because we have usually classes from 9 to 4 or 9 to 6, so 9 a.m. to 4 or 6 p.m. with a 1 hour lunch break in between. And then Italian classes aren't included in that. They're either on Sundays sometimes or after that. So you might have class from 4 to 6 Italian time for Italian, or from 6 to 8. So honestly, I didn't go to most classes because Spanish helps me a lot. I have that advantage that Spanish and Italian are very similar. And but there were a lot of complaints that they started off the Italian classes really quickly, and a lot of people that didn't go for the first few lessons and went after felt very lost because of this, because they thought they were at a certain level, but people had just joined. So there was like a few different levels. So if you're considering moving to a different country that perhaps speaks a different language, I would really recommend, which is also what I did, getting a tutor or just going on Duolingo or anything to start getting yourself up to speed in that language. Because even just going around the city of Milan, nothing related to medicine, knowing Italian is such an advantage. So, and if you move to any country in the world that doesn't speak the language you speak, knowing the language of where you're going is a huge advantage, not only for your medical or university career, but also for just like living there and your personal life.
Very interesting thing to like get to know about the importance of language. And it's very rightly said that studying medicine is not only about teacher student interaction, it is about interacting with the patients and to get to know more from the patients, their problem, you need to learn or speak in their language. Like you cannot expect a patient who is in pain. They are not study material. They are real people. They will express themselves best in their own mother tongue. In India, you must be knowing, I hope, like there are 28 different languages spoken, official language, and there's a mother tongue of a lot of small states in India. And if a student from one state of India move to other state, at least to study medicine, the whole classes, course, everything is in English. But to interact with patient, they need to learn that language. Maybe not to write that language, but need to speak it and understand that language so that they can do better in medicine. So it's applicable everywhere in the world, wherever you go. Like education can be given in a particular language, but interacting with the patient has to be done in the vernacular language, and that helps in day-to-day life as well. So, Emiliano, one more thing I will like to know. Uh, in Italy, a lot of Indian students are now applying from India. That was the reason I chose Italy as a destination to make video, because a lot of students already right now, I have 3-4 students who have already messaged me like, sir, get these ask these questions. So in Italy, if a student study medicine, like you are completing your education in Italy, after completing your education, you are not an Italian passport holder. You are a Mexican passport holder. Can you practice in Italy without any entrance exam or any kind of exit exam, or can you like you have to pass certain exam or get work license? How you can practice in Italy with Mexican passport? Or suppose you get PR and all, that is a different thing. But with Mexican passport or with Indian passport, can an Indian student practice medicine in Italy after completing the course?
Yeah, I think you need a because you're there on a student visa and a residence permit, which you get throughout the 6 years. I don't know. I assume you need a work permit or a work visa. But graduating from a school in the within Europe, being a doctor, I think it's not that hard to get. A lot of my friends, well, I have a friend that graduated that went to Wales. Actually, a few friends went to Wales, for example. So you can go wherever you want to study. To work, I mean, as a doctor, because you finish as a general doctor, and then you can either work as a general medical practitioner, a family doctor, or you can um, go into a specialty and become a specialist in a certain area, like a surgeon or an ophthalmologist or whatever you want, or you figure out throughout those 6 years. Um, I'm as from what I know, yes, you can stay there and practice. You just need to sort out your a visa. But now that you've been in Italy for 6 years, and you in theory know the language and have been studying, and now that you're going to become an asset for the country and going to be paying taxes and making money, um, it shouldn't be, especially as a doctor, which is like a prestigious job, which is controversial. But I think I think you should be able to easily get a work permit and stay there. But I don't know. Right now, I've truly just been focused on getting from first year to second year, and because I've heard that the first 2 years are the hardest. So, and then it gets quite, well, not easier, but at least more interesting when you're interacting with patients and being in the clinic. So I don't know, but from what I've heard from a few of my graduating classmates who are 5 years older, they are either moving to different places, getting work visas, or staying, but also getting a work visa.
So this scenario is something which a lot of Indian and foreign student want to know more when they want to study medicine in Italy, because especially from Asian countries, students study medicine in European country or in US American in USA. They will like to practice there so that they can earn after education. So this is something is always there in the mind of Indian and Asian student. So this question was very important for all the student to know. About the education, you have given the details. Can you give me some more insight about like kind of holidays you get when like right now you are in Mexico. I think you are not. I'm not audible to you. Am I audible to you, Emiliano? Am I audible to you? I think Emiliano is again disconnected because of the internet issues. So we will wait for him to connect. And I hope the students who are watching this video and the parents who are watching this video is not about any marketing information, because here we are asking those questions to the students or to Emiliano, the questions which can help you to plan your career, plan your education in Italy. So Emiliano is back, I believe.
Yeah,
I,
sorry again.
I
Uh,
understand. So this happens like whenever we are live, this kind of things happens, and that's why and why we go live. Frankly speaking, there here we can give the insight of what actually it means, and with our wholehearted information comes up. But when we come for 10 minutes video, there are some information which looks interesting might not contain what actual information is required by the students. So Emiliano, I apart from this work visa thing, coming back to the education and the holidays right now in you're back to Mexico. So what kind of holidays, like how many days of holiday you get during the duration of the course, and how this course is divided when the exam is there, like is it based on semester, based on trimester, how the whole education and the syllabus is planned? Can you give the details? After that we'll get to know more about the teachers who are teaching you after the syllabus.
yeah, so it really depends on your exams. So for example, okay, so first of all, the year is split into 2 semesters, which are around three months of teaching long. You have classes from 9 to 6, where 2 hour blocks of classes, at least in Humanitas, um, and and you're being taught by different professors for around 3 months. That's the semester, and then you have a couple of tries for the exam separated by like a couple of weeks. So for example, the first semester was from October, I think, to the 1st of January, or to not the 1st of January, but to around the 6th or 7th of January. And we came back to, I think, a couple of weeks of teaching. And then there's 10 or so days of study break where you don't have class, but you have exams coming up. And then we had, I think, exams around the end of January. We had one session, and then we had another session around the middle of February. So this is the first try to ace or to get past your first semester exams, and then you have a second try to do the exams for the same subjects. And for example, I passed all my exams in January, so I had around a 15-day break, a 2 week break, because I had no more exams to do. So I didn't come back to Mexico, but I could have if I lived closer or if it was cheaper. But I did travel. I went to Malta, for example, on holiday for a while. And then there is the second session of exams, which you might have to do or not, depending on how you did during the first session. And then I think there's a couple of weeks break between first semester and second semester for everybody where there's no exams. And then I think my friends and I went to Lisbon because you're in Europe, so it's very easy to travel and it's quite cheap on some flights are quite cheap and quite accessible. And then you come back for second semester, which was 2.5 months of classes from 9 to 6, usually every day from Monday to Friday. And then again, there's a study break of like 10 days where you are supposed to, 10 days or 2 weeks, I think, where you're supposed to, and this is before June. I think the first exam was around the middle of June. So you have 2 weeks before that to study for your exams, and then you have the exams are separated by like 5 days to a week, usually maybe 3 days, sometimes 3 days, 5 days a week. It depends on your schedule. And you had one exam session in June, in June, and this is 3 exams for the second. It was 2 exams the first semester and 3 exams the second semester. So not many exams, but they're just big. So for example, anatomy was 3 different subsections. It was 82 questions. So it's a lot to study. but it's only 3 exams in the second semester. And then, for example, if I had finished all my exams in June, I would have been finished on the 27th of June. That was my last exam. Unfortunately, I only passed one of the 2 exams in June, so I had to stay. I passed one of the 3 exams in June, and I had to stay until July. I did 2 exams in July, um, and I passed one of them, which was biochemistry. And I had the option of taking August off and coming back in September to do the exam I was missing, which is anatomy, or which is what a lot of my classmates did to not like fall behind in terms of the exam schedule, or you could do what I did, which is take off both months, August and September, and come back at the beginning of classes, which is in October. And then yeah, so it really depends on how you do during exams. If you were to pass everything in June, you would have July, September, August, September, and you would have to come back. So that's 3 whole months that you could have if you pass everything in June. Of course, a lot of my classmates have 1 month, which really turns into 3 weeks or 2 weeks, depending on how they want to study during that break. But yeah, it depends. And there's also you also obviously have Christmas break during the, I think first year it's in the middle or towards the tail end of first semester, where we had 2 weeks or a bit more, 20 days, and then you come back to school for exams for the first session of the semester 1 exams. But it really does depend on how you choose. A lot of classmates. My goal, for example, was to do all of the exams in June, and then if I failed any, which I didn't want to, but if I wanted to do all the exams in July. A lot of what my classmates did is plan to do 1 or 2 exams in June and study really well for them, and then do their remaining exam in July. So not planning to do all of them and then all of the remaining, but planning to do strategically a couple and then the other one way later to give them both their like full undivided attention. So it does depend on your strategy. You can have up to 3 months or like 3 weeks. It depends on how you do during exams, during school.
Very detailed, and something which I think we have to cut some part of the video for specific questions so that student can get the direct information. So these exams and everything is quite much clear, but what is your future plan, Emiliano? Like you want to practice in Italy, like you have already said that you have the scope to go to like Spain and practice there as well. So if you go from one country to another country to practice, is there any license requirement, and if it is so, like do you have to appear for any entrance examination, or based on documents you can apply? And can you come back to Mexico and practice as well, though you are not getting to study medicine there? Can you practice medicine there after completion of medicine in Italy?
To come back to Mexico, I would have to do an exam to revalidate my studies. But it's not something I think I'm going to do because Mexico is a developing country and Italy is more of a developed country. So I think once I've made that step to study in Italy, I would rather stay in the European Union. I can move from country to country without having to do any exam as long as I know the language, I'm pretty sure. However, I think my plans, and this is right now when I still have 5 years to think about this and to really plan this out. But since I am a Mexican national, I can work in Spain for I think around 2 years and gain a Spanish citizenship because of reparations and stuff like that. So I think that would be my plan, to work and slash do maybe a specialty in which I don't know which one yet, but like specialize in something in Spain, gain that European passport or that Spanish passport, and then I don't know. I personally don't know yet, but a lot of people, a lot of classmates of mine are aiming to go to Switzerland, which apparently pays really well, and you can start start in an Italian knowing part of Switzerland, learn German, and then move to like a German speaking city. Um, a lot of people are going back to their home countries if they're European. A lot of people are staying in Italy, so there's a lot of different choices you could take. I think most people that move to Italy to study medicine do plan on staying around the European Union. I don't know if a lot of people are planning on going back. Um, there's a couple of people from the United States that do want to go back, and there is, of course, I think as long as you I think if you exit the European Union to go to any country, you do have to do an exam to make sure so the country makes sure that they're importing doctors that are qualified and that know the same amount or the same information that doctors of said country are supposed to know. So yeah, if I came back to Mexico, I would have to do some sort of exam, but I don't think I have to do one going from European country to European country.
That is something which is interesting to know, because European Union actually, I think, is different. It behaves like one country, and there are a lot of advantage of moving from one country to another country inside Europe. As I traveled across Europe in 2016, 17, I felt that, like, though the language and some part of culture is different, but somehow there are a lot of similarities in education and trade transfer and a lot
Yeah.
of other things. So Emiliano, this was a great conversation. We almost completed 1 hour, and it's we just started, and there are so many questions still in my mind. So I will ask few questions because I don't want to elongate it a lot. If needed, we'll do another session to take it further. Once
Yeah.
you are back to Italy, we can do a session from Italy, and that will be a different experience altogether. I want to know a few more things, like in Italy, when you are studying, is there any scope to earn while you learn? Like, is there any scope of part-time work, and then you can make some money and can bear the cost of education? You got the scholarship, so you might not need that. But many those who don't get scholarship, can they plan their education in a way that they can earn while they learn, and then they can like pay the fees themselves after second year onwards, if not first?
I don't know if you can earn enough to pay off at 20,000 euros, because that's okay. Humanitas fees are 20,000 euros a year, which is a lot of money. Um, I don't know if at part time or as a student you can earn that much money. So I don't know if you could pay off your entirety of school fees based on working. I know that Humanitas offers like some part-time jobs. You can like work at the library and they pay you a slight amount. Definitely not enough to cover the school fees though. I think since you're there on a student visa too, it's hard to be employed, but I know like formally employed. But what I've done and what a few of my classmates have done is do online tutoring, for example, where you like if we did I did the IB or if I was like excellent at writing essays or something, you can go online and find either agencies that will hire you as a tutor and provide their services through you, or like individually through like friends or classmates or like your old school or something. Just tutoring people is something that, because we were all, I think a lot of people that are in medical school were relatively good at school and had high grades and did high marks and performed well. So tutoring is something that we can all, I think, kind of do at least in a couple of subjects, and that's I think what we've done. Um, but it's definitely not enough to cover your school fees, especially because there's also, it's moving to Italy or to any other country. You have to think about where you're gonna live as well as school fees, and then food and recreation and transport and all of that. So it's, I don't think you can earn enough as a student slash part-time jobber to cover all that. But you can definitely find some odd jobs here and there, but I don't think you can be formally employed under a student visa.
Okay, that is something new to me, and there's a lot of students are being promoted. Like, you can go and earn a lot, and then you can manage the education. This is something which was correctly said, that earning is possible, but not enough to pay the fees, because this is huge. So Emiliano, What is your future plan? This is a personal question. What is your future plan? When will you graduate? Will you go for further studies, or which country are you planning to settle down, or you will come back to Mexico? So, what kind of future you are looking forward
So I I graduate in hopefully in 5 years if everything goes according to plan. Yeah, in 2027 is when I'm gonna be graduating, and the plan is to graduate as a medical practitioner. Either to take a year off and save up throughout uni, take a year off, explore my options, and then commit to a specialty, or I know by the end of these 5 years um, what specialty I want to go into, and I pursue that specialty. I still don't know what it is. I think it's hard to tell just from the preclinical or the theoretical years, because it's not the same looking at an anatomy textbook than talking to a doctor or seeing what a doctor does. Um, so for I have since I know a few doctors here because of my parents. Um, Here in Mexico, I have the opportunity of going to different surgeries, for example, and talking to different doctors. So I definitely plan on doing that. And obviously, as I grow more experienced in the medical field, maybe helping a bit more, learning a bit more. But right now, I only sit and stare, rightfully so. But it's still a learning opportunity for me. So just right now, the plan before I graduate is figure out what specialty I want to go into, because I do know that I want to go into a certain specialty. I just don't know which one yet. After that, I'm most probably going to stay in Europe. I don't see myself coming back to Mexico, not forever at least. Maybe for a few years, but definitely coming back and settling down in a country in Europe. I think the easiest way to do that would be to work for a few years in Spain and get the Spanish passport, get the Spanish citizenship, or the Spanish just become an EU national, so to speak. I think that would smooth over a lot of things. That would make it quite easier for me, which is again an advantage I have. Um, and then in terms of jobs, I've heard that one of the best places to go in terms of money made, which I think is a big factor why people choose medicine, even though nobody really talks about it. I think doctors are very well paid throughout Europe. Honestly, I think the median salary for a doctor in Italy is 168,000 euros a year, which I think is a considerable amount. Definitely less than in the United States, but I think that's another matter. But I think I've heard of Switzerland being a very popular country to go to. I think they pay a lot, and it's a very nice country. I've been a few times, and it's very nice. I could definitely see myself living there when I'm older. Um, but to do that, you need to speak the language and stuff like that. So short term plans, speaking 7, 8 years in the future, is definitely getting that Spanish. Well, taking advantage of what the Spanish offer in terms of passport, citizenship, all that, to to be able to work and stay in Italy, in Europe full time. And after that, we'll see. And in terms of specialty, I don't know yet. I've seen a few surgeries here in Mexico, and from what we've studied in school, I know kind of what I don't want. A lot of people said, for example, being a neurosurgeon or something like that would be very interesting. But now that we've studied neuroanatomy, I can tell you that that's not for me, and I think that's going to happen a lot more once we start going to clinical years. So I'm not going to confine myself to a choice right now when it's so long to go. It's a long career, but yeah, hopefully it's worth it, and uh, I'll see.
Emiliano, it's really great to speak to you with the clarity of mind and the logic which you are giving, like why you don't have a pre-plan of speciality, which a lot of students do plan it out without going through the track or without learning the ABCD of medicine. They do make a sentence and a good essay for their life. So it's really interesting, and I will recommend all my viewers, like I will definitely recommend this video for all my viewers. Even if you don't want to study in Italy, if you want to study medicine, the clarity and the future plan that is required, there are a lot of things you can learn from this particular discussion which we had with Emiliano. And one more thing, Emiliano, as you have done your IB, the International Baccalaureate Program, the kind of clarity you have, I will love to host you for another session just to discuss about IB program. Because frankly speaking, right now in India, a lot of students are planning to take IB, but they don't know much about the future aspect, the pros and cons. And as you have gone through both pros and cons, and you have faced a lot of hardship taking the IB, the advantages of it, and also you had to go out of your country because of IB. So there are many pros and cons we have already gone through. So if you can give me some time, maybe later, not just this week, we can have a great discussion about who should take IB, how it can change you as a person. Is it a normal education which other boards or board education provide, or how different it can be? So that is something normally we don't do on our YouTube channel. We mainly focus on our medical students and program, but a lot of inquiries have come about IB, because a lot of IB applied students ask me that, can I be a doctor, can I be an engineer? So these kind of questions, even I don't have much knowledge about it. So I think you are the right person to take it further. So in future, if you have some time, we will definitely
Yeah,
love
of
to.
course. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, so that is something I take a promise from you, that we'll be hosting you again for that program. And once you're back to Italy, we'll take this further. Maybe in coming
Yeah.
6 months, once you have more subject knowledge, then we will get into the depth of how the education can be. And it was lovely interacting with you. I remember my younger days when we used to think about some this kind of clarity for our further education. And I wish you all the best. That you,
Thank you.
I
Same
see
to
you
you.
as a good doctor, and someday we'll love to see you in India treating some patients out here as well.
Of course. Thank you so
Well,
much.
okay, take care and have a good day. We will be
You
saying
too.
good night here.
Oh,
Take
good
care.
night then. Yeah.
Take So this was Emiliano, who gave the insight of how the medical education is in Italy. A very detailed information he has given. So those who are planning to study in medicine in Italy, if you have any question, please comment, and I can share the future details of what are the upcoming video related to Italy in our channel. And moreover, if you put your all questions in our comment section, the next time I host Emiliano or someone who is studying medicine in Italy, those questions can be included. I know a lot of questions cannot be taken today, but I wanted to make you understand about the scholarship and other opportunities to study medicine in Italy. What are the facts and what are the fiction? There fictional stories given by a lot of consultants about a scholarship and about getting part-time job and funding your studies. So these things was clear today by Mr. Emiliano, who will be future doctor, serving the world, serving us, and serving the society. I'm really thankful to him that he thinks that serving people is above any career, and his family has given their life for doing the same. So thanking to him, and we'll love to host him in our next session. So if you like this video, please subscribe to our channel for future updates and press the bell icon so that you can see our next video with Emiliano very soon when he will be live from Italy. Thank you.